Well, Dune Part 2 is heading our way, and so is the Scorsese film, and they are interlinked as we shall see. So here we're going to look at Secrets of Dune and his video breaking down the Dune trailer for Part 2. And unfortunately, it starts off strong, but then it gets more and more weak based on his, I think, political biases.
The Nazoni scarf is defined as the scarf pad worn at the forehead beneath the stillsuit hood by married or associated Fremen women after a birth of a son. Not only does it indicate that Chani is married, but that she has also given birth to a son. So we may get to see a marriage between Paul Atreides and Chani, and a birth scene. So the Sandrider scene happens after Chani and Paul are either married or associated with each other.
Well, I agree. This is a pretty good catch in terms of what may happen with Chani and Paul and their relationship. It's not spoiling too much that obviously they're going to be in some kind of romantic, erotic relationship because, again, Paul wants to ingratiate himself into the Fremen, become a leader, and obviously that usually happens when within a culture you want to gain confidence, you marry one of their own. So I think the speculation here is actually pretty fair, it's balanced, it's pretty strong. Little Easter egg that he noticed, so very high marks there. But then slowly things are going to start declining where he starts putting his own politics into the fiction. Now to be fair, Denis I think is distorting some things in Dune, and I think you want to be mindful of, yes, you want to support Dune and even admire Denis' style, but some of the things he's doing do not make sense with the mythology. And let's hear him try to basically get away with distorting what happened in the book.
He has. Here we can see the Fremen language Shakopsa embroidered into Jessica's clothing, and in this scene we can see Paul fighting his mother or disagreeing with her methodology of exploiting the Fremen people. So this is Paul pretty much showing where his heart lies, and that is with the Fremen people and their...
Well, it's complicated. I mean, in the book, Paul openly says, yes, they are exploiting the Fremen. This isn't me speculating, this is in the text. He and his father, Leto, openly say they will exploit the Fremen. So what he means about long live the fighters, Paul is coming to save them. That's Denis' framing in part 1, and apparently in part 2, yes, he will mostly be heroic. That's not the book. In the book, he's very ruthlessly pragmatic. He's much more Machiavellian in the book. So apparently Denis is easing off that interpretation, which is his right, but that is not in the book. So if we're going to do a deep dive, we want to at least be truthful and honest that this isn't really in the book. This is Denis distorting the book. And then it gets a whole lot worse, where apparently Paul will be Osama bin Laden out of nowhere.
It would be great if he did say Ya Haya Shuhadat though. The flag that the Fremen are waving is a pan-Arab flag and consists of red, white, green and black. It could even be described as the flag of the Arab Revolt.
To be fair, yes, Frank Herbert is commenting on American imperialism. But even there, we got to be careful. Like, the Baron, I think, allegorically stands for the Russians. Even though Frank Herbert is mostly concentrating on British and American imperialism, he's very critical of all kinds of imperialism and all kinds of bureaucracy. So yes, he's focused on the CIA and British and French and how they abused and exploited the people in the Middle East. But he's also very mindful of the Soviet Union and its horrific bureaucracy and its tendency to be exploitive. He may actually go a little bit too far. I mean, yes, the Russians are pretty bad, but in the Middle East, they weren't as bad as these other imperialists. Nevertheless, within the story, I think you can say that the Baron represents kind of the Russian Empire allegorically. The Emperor is a little bit more fuzzy. It's unclear where he stands. I do think it's legitimate to say he probably stands for the Shah in the Middle East, who was a dictator the CIA put into power when they destroyed democracy in Iran. So there are definitely allusions to American imperialism and the way that, quote, Arabs and Middle East people have risen up against it. But that's not the only culture being featured in the books, by far. There are many, many references to Jewish culture and religion. There are many references to Native American religion and culture, just as they are in the Scorsese trailer. And that is totally appropriate because that's what Frank Herbert tapped into. There are many cultures that the Fremen represent, and there are many cultures featured within the Dune series and the Dune mythology, not just Arabs, not just the Middle East. So just to preemptively jump to, this is a sign of the Arab revolt, and it's a Arab flag, is based on what? I will grant Denis will probably concentrate and emphasize that. It's pretty clear that he opposes the Iraq War and doesn't like what America has done recently in foreign policy. I would agree. Denis is more liberal and left in his politics, but I don't see the end necessarily Paul as an Arab freedom fighter. I think it's a little bit more ambiguous. I am worried that they're going to go overboard to make him too heroic, but that's me trying to stick to the books. It's also me sticking to the books that we need a much greater emphasis on Native American culture, but that's me, and I think that's also appropriate in the Scorsese trailer, because again, that's a big part of that story as well. This trailer breakdown was okay, but again, along with some good Easter eggs, I think Secrets of Dune is just putting in his political bias, and we need to have a good balance between the Frank Herbert mythology and what Denis wants as an artist. If we just go leaning one way, then it may, I think, not be the best story that we can get as Dune fans. But that's me, and I think you want to be more balanced than this trailer breakdown is. It's a good breakdown overall, but it is, I think, a little bit too biased in certain parts.